How long do you think Jesus wants you to be a Christian for? Maybe a week? Couple of weeks? A month? What do you think, Nathan? Forever, yeah. Jesus wants you to be a Christian forever. You know, when two people get married, they don't stand in the church together in front of God and say, well, we'll try and be married for a few days, or maybe we'll see if we can last the month. What they do is they make a promise to each other that even if things get difficult, even when things maybe are hard, even when they have arguments, that they're going to try and stick together with God's help. And what they're doing in that is making a commitment to each other. And the reason I'm telling you this is because today's parable is about Jesus, and the crowds are following him. They're very excited by all the things that are happening because he's feeding them, he's doing miracles in front of them, and he's giving them this amazing teaching. And he looks at the crowd and he wants to know whether they're still going to be there when things aren't quite so exciting, when things aren't going to be quite so good. And he wants to ask the question, are you committed to being a Christian? And so he tells this parable about a man. Here's a man sitting down, and he's sitting at his table, and he's obviously outside, and he's looking at his land. And he decides that he wants to build something on his land. What do you think he might want to build on his land? What do you think, Trev? A house? It could have been a house. It's not a house. I'll tell you what it is. It's a tower. He wants to build a tower. The tower is nice and high, and from the top of the tower you can see if any trouble is coming, you can see if an enemy is approaching. Another thing about a tower is a strong building, and in the strong building you can be protected, you can be safe, and it might also be somewhere where you can keep all your valuables as well. Another thing about having a tower on your land is it might increase the value of your property. It might make your land worth more money. And the last reason perhaps for having a tower is that when other people see that you've got a tower, they'll give you some respect. You might say to them, I've got a tower on my land. And they say, wow, look at that guy. He's got a tower. Now, before he builds the tower, he's got to think about certain things. First thing he's got to think about is where he's going to build it. And he's going to build it over here, okay? And when he's built this tower is going to go up to about this high. So it's a great big huge tower he's going to build. That's the first thing he needs to think about, where to build it. The second thing he needs to think about is he needs to think to himself, what's this tower going to look like? And so he has to have a plan. There's his plan. He's reading his plan. He thinks when this tower is built, it's going to look like that. The third thing he needs is he needs somebody to do the building. And so he gets some builders in. There's the builders there in the distance, ready to build this tower. And what's the last thing he needs? Anyone else think of what he might need, Andrew? Material. And what's he going to use to pay for the material? Justin? Money, yeah. Money or gold. We've got both here. Lots and lots of gold coins. Okay, so he's got everything ready. He's got his plan, his money, his builders, and he's got a place to build it. So he starts to get this tower built. Now, as this tower starts to be built, I wonder if you can notice what's happening to the picture. Can you see what's happening there? The tower's going up. What else is happening to the picture there? The money's going down, yeah. Okay, now remember, he wants to get his tower up to this height. Do you think he's actually going to make it that high? Let's see a bit further. The builders are carrying on working. That money's going down pretty quickly, isn't it? The tower only gets that far before all the money runs out. He didn't get it up to there, did he? In fact, he hasn't even made his tower halfway. What do you think people are going to think when he told everybody he was going to have this great tower made, and then suddenly he hasn't even got half a tower? What do you think the people are going to do? What do you think, Nathan? They're going to laugh at him. They're going to mock him. They're going to say, this man tried to build a tower, and look, he's got half a tower. That half a tower, he can't see anyone from the top of that. If he got to the top of that, he's barely any taller than the builders. He's not going to be able to see any enemies coming. That's not going to be a place where he can keep his stuff safe. That's not going to be something that's going to increase the value of his property. This isn't going to be something that people are going to say, wow, look at that guy. Look at the half tower that he built. He's embarrassed, he's humiliated because he started something that he couldn't finish. And the reason he couldn't finish it is because he didn't make his plans properly. He didn't calculate how much he would need, whether he had enough to pay for the thing that he wanted to do. You know, half a tower is about as useless as no tower at all. And I think what Jesus is saying in this parable is that it's possible to be half a Christian. It's possible to be half a disciple, somebody who started out but who just didn't finish. And Jesus is saying it's not about starting. Starting is important as a Christian, but when you start, you need to understand that you're taking a lifelong journey and it might not always be easy. What Jesus wants you to do before you start is to have some idea that you're going to finish. Well, we're not very strong in our own strength, are we? Of course we're going to probably fall away, but God helps us. And God is there to help us to do the things that we can't do ourselves. In Matthew chapter 8, two men come to Jesus, and they both say to Jesus, "We're going to follow you." And Jesus says to the first man, who I think he must have looked at this man and looked at his nice clothes, and perhaps he knew that he came from a nice house. And Jesus says to this man, "You know, the Son of Man," speaking about himself, he said, "The Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." "I don't have a home," says Jesus. "And if you follow me, there's no guarantee that you'll have a home. You might not have food. You might not have nice clothes to wear. You might have to have a lot of people being angry with you and hating you and making life difficult for you." He says, if you're not ready for any of that, then maybe you're not ready to be a disciple. Another man comes to him and says, "I will follow you too, but first let me go and bury my father." And Jesus says, "You know, it's good that you love your family, but you should love Jesus more. Jesus should be your priority. Follow Jesus first before you do anything else at all." Jesus says this at the end of the parable. He says, "Any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple." You wouldn't build a tower if you didn't have enough money. You wouldn't start out being a Christian if you didn't know what was coming, if you weren't prepared for all the things that lay ahead. And Jesus says, just as there's a cost in finishing a tower, there's a cost in being a disciple.